Good morning, fellow app makers. Behzad is here from Simplifier. Welcome back to another video of how to design and develop tip calculation application using Kotlin language for beginners. In our previous video, I explained different sections of any Android application, how they all work together, and what each section does. In today's video, we will learn how to convert properties, how to access to our XML elements, convert int value to currency value, and test our application. It doesn't make sense right now, but I will explain them along the way so you understand by end of this video. We will use the term of bending views a lot in this video. So before moving on, I would like to explain what is bending view and how you can take advantage of it in developing your application. So imagine you have a plate of food in front of you which has everything on the plate for you. So that means you have an access to everything on your plate and you don't have to move around to pick up any item individually. In our previous videos, we designed our user interfaces, which you can see here. And in today's video, we are going to write hard code or back end of this application and make all of those user interfaces work together to deliver a result to us. As you see, everything is in our application work, and you can put an amount in our tip amount. And if you press the calculate button, nothing works because it doesn't have any related code to make everything work and give us a result. The aim of this application is to give us a tip amount that we are going to pay for our service. That means whenever the user is going to press the calculate button, we want to show us how much tip we are going to pay for it. Now we know what we want, so let's write down the code to calculate the tip amount for us. Go inside your onCreate below your set content view, give some gap to yourself. We need to use our bending dot calculate button dot set on click listener. So just write down what I'm writing and then I'll explain it to you what it is. Second one from button, so you will have a curly braces each side of the set on click listener. Press tab and we just write down calculate tip function. Semicolon is optional. I would like to just keep it to remind myself what it is. You will see an error here, so don't worry about it. We will fix the error in a second. But let me explain what happened just here to make your head familiar with our action. So bending is our plate in our view. This is our plate, and tip calculation button is an item on your plate. Let's say it's tomato on your plate. And where is this tip calculation button came from? It came from your activity main. If you scroll down, we had a button and the tip calculation button was the ID for this button, which it will calculate your tip amount. Go back to your main activity. Set on click listener is lambda expression. The lambda expression, I wouldn't go in details for it and I'll explain it to you upcoming videos. That here, whenever the user is going to press the calculate button, we are going to run a calculate tip function and calculate the tip for us. Obviously, we don't have our calculate tip function here. That's why we will get an error. So let's go and create this calculate tip function and make it work. Come down below your onCreate. We write down a comment. As I explained in our previous videos, I would like to write down the usage of each function that I'm writing at the start and end of each method or each function. So in that case, it will separate all the functions from each other, and if you're writing more code, it will be easier for you to find your codes in a little container and it will be easier to maintain your codes. So I just wrote down here, it will calculate the tip. Now come down, write down a private fun, which stands for function, and we use the name that we use in our lambda expression. Just calculate the tip, parentheses and curly braces. Now copy your comment and come down at the end of your tag. It will have a few benefits if you have your comments at the start and end of your tag, because if you're going to write down a few function inside your function or your method, then you know the end parentheses, it will be end of your actual function. So don't worry, we will have lots of example in these functions and you will understand what I'm saying. Now we are going to write down the code inside our calculative function. Write down vol, follow what I'm writing, and I will explain every section of these variables or this code for you. Equals to bending cost of service dot text to string to double semicolon. Semicolon is an optional. What just happened here? The vol is a variable that won't change in value. The cost is the name of variable. It will be good practice to write down the variable's name relative to what they are going to do. Bending was our plate. Cost of service was the edit text in our XML layout, which we have an access to it from our bending. And if you go into your activity main XML layout, this is the ID we gave as our edit text, which where the user puts the amount of the cost of service inside it. Then we'll have a text after the cost of service. That means we will get the value as a text from this edit text. And remember, the machine doesn't understand the different types of each value for edit text. That's why you have to convert it. Then we have our toString. We will get a text property in our edit text converted to a string. Then because we need to have the number to calculate the tip, that's why using a double. The difference between the double and int is the int is solid number and double has point in it. So we have the cost here. Now move on. We got the cost of service. The next step we need to take is to calculate the amount or the percentage of the tip that the customer or the user is going to pay for our service. Now we are still in our calculative functions. Come down below your cost. We have your variable. Write it down as tip percentage equals to. Because we have different amount for our different percentage for our tip, we have to write down a value. That means every time the user press on it, we have to have a way to calculate it. So what I mean by that, just write down when. This is a property that we are going to use to calculate the tip. We have our tip percentage. So we have to check whenever the user select a different options for our tip percentage, we'll give a right amount for it. Basically, we will calculate a right amount for it. What should we write down inside these parentheses? What we have to write down? We have to write down an expression. That means everything is happening. Whatever is selected inside the when parentheses, if it's correct, we have to execute a code. What should we write down? Just write down bending dot radio group dot checked radio button ID. It is an int. Click on tab and inside the parentheses. What happens? We said when the bending radio group is checked radio button ID, whatever checked inside this application or these three options we had. By default, we selected our amazing service unless the user is going to change the tip. So for every time we select on different percentage of the tip, we're selecting a different radio button with different ID. That's what we have to check if the radio button ID has been checked. Come down here. We have to check if this expression inside the parentheses is correct, what should happen. Just come down inside your parentheses. We need to write down R as it explains for resource dot ID. We need an ID. Write down amazing minus close parentheses 20 r.id good minus close parentheses 18 and else is our 10%. What just happened here? Where amazing good came from? So R stands for our resources. ID stands for an ID, and amazing. The amazing came from our string resources. Go to your left hand side project folder, click on your string, and here we selected our amazing as a name, as a good for string resources, and a K for our 15 or 10%. Come to main activities. Let's change this before forgetting it. So we checked if the radio button ID has been checked as an amazing, which we have it here. We calculate the tip as 20%. If it's good, we calculate it as 18%. If it's none of amazing or good, that means a user selected a K, which stands for 15%. And there is one tiny mistake. They have to be in percentage, not is whole value. Just write down, and this is an expression for our tip percentage. Now we got the cost of service from our user. Then we came here, we selected the amount of the tip or percentage of the tip they are going to pay. Next move is calculate the actual tip. What we have to do is come below your tip percentage, write down var tip equals to cost time tip percentage, semicolon. Semicolon is not essential, as I always remind you. Why did we use var, not val? We wrote down var because var is a variable. That means the tip amount or the return value for this variable could be different, and that equals to cost, which we got it from here, times by tip percentage. Whatever the cost will be times percentage, then it will give us a tip amount that the user is going to pay for the service. Now we have the tip amount. The next section we have to work on is our switch, which it will round up our tip or leave it as it is. So what does that mean? For example, let's say the amount of the tip that a user is going to pay is $2.50. That is not rounded up. If the user is going to make it rounded up, they will just toggle the round up tip, and that it will does a calculation and it will round it up to $3 or $2. That is a difference. So before moving on, we have to clear this round up tip, and if for any reason your user or the customer decided to round up the tip, we have to have a code for it to handle the result. How are we going to handle it? Come down below your tip. We need an if expression, and we have to write down some codes inside of the expression. Write down bending, round up, round tip switch that is checked. So what we write down, we have our plate, round up switch came from our XML layout from our switch button, and is checked. That means if is on or off. That this identifies if it's been selected. The machine, it assumes the round up switch has been turned on. That's what we are going to calculate. Inside parentheses, give some gap to yourself. We need to get a tip from our variable equals to Kotlin dot math dot sale x double, and we just deliver the tip again here. That will handle if the user decide to run out the tip or not. This expression and this code will handle that amount and will convert it automatically. So far we got the cost of service, we got the amount or tip percentage that user is going to pay, then we calculate the tip amount, and here we handle if the user is going to run out the tip or not. Now we have to show the tip amount here, and we need a currency. How are we going to handle it? Write down a val, write down a formatted tip equals to number format Java text, the third one from top, number format parentheses java.text dot get currency instance. the top one, which doesn't have just empty parentheses, dot format, and again we have double. Just come to the down, not the long one, because we have a double here. We are going to convert the double, and here we are delivering the tip that we got in result from here. Write down the tip, and that will handle, and it gives us a formatted tip, which it shows here. Semicolon, and we move on to next step. We almost finished here. So we got the cost of service, we handle the tip percentage of the user, we handle if the user is deciding to run out the tip amount or not, and then we're having a formatted tip amount here. So we have to have a very tiny changes here in tip amount, which is shows the currency value of the tip amount that is going to show to our user. How are we going to do it? Just go back to your string resources. In tip amount, that is where we are going to show the tip amount to our user. Change the name to tip underscore amount, and here is what is going to show. All you have to do is just put a percentage sign and a lower s, which it will convert the sign of the currency of each country that is going to convert the application. That's it for here. Now hover back to your main activity, and now we are going to show the actual tip amount with a right formatted currency sign. Below your formatted tip, you have to just write down bending dot tip amount dot text equals to get a string. So the top one from top, it says a string, and parentheses resid.int. That is what we needed. Here we have to refer to the string resources that we have in our string source. Just write down our string tip amount, then you have a comma, and we have to give us our formatted tip. Semicolon. What just happened here? So we have a bending is our plate, tip amount, it came from the ID of our text view tip amount in our XML layout. If you're going back here, we have our tip amount in our text view. Then we got the value of the text from that tip amount, and the get a string, it will access to the string resources from our application and is going to use it. R stands for resources, string is string resources, which is this XML file we have here, and tip amount is the name of tip amount in our string resources. We got it from here. Then we have formatted tip, which is formatted tip. It shows the amount of the money with the sign of that currency we are going to use. And I just noticed one error here in our activity main. Yes, that's the string resources name has been changed. All we have to do is write down tip amount in our string resource. Problem solved. Now just quickly check everything's settled. Yes, we got the cost of service, we got the percentage, we got the tip, how it works. Then we are going to check if the switch rounded is on or off. Then we have our formatted tip, which gets a currency, and here we are going to show the amount. Yes, everything is ready. Now let's test our application to see everything's worked fine. Before we're moving on and actually run our application, we have to do a super tiny change in our application, and I'll explain to you what is it. Go to your XML layout in our activity main layout, come down to your text view, where we show our tip amount. If you zoom in your vertical here, the tip amount and reference to a string resource and shows what exactly we wrote in our string resources for tip amount. That is what it shows. So to avoid and make it look nice and to see actually everything's work, all you have to do is come to your Android text, delete this code, write down tools and text tip amount as $10. So this is not very important. It just you can see what happened here and what you will see. And when you're running your application, that doesn't show up. So do not worry about it. All we've done just change from Android to tools and shows the amount of the tip that we're going to use. Now let's run our application to see everything works fine. We just having our application here. We are going to test it. I'll put the cost of service as 123, and we are assuming the service delivery was amazing. That's we press our calculate button, and here it shows the tip amount that we are going to use. And if we change the satisfaction of the service, the amount of the tip that we are going to pay, it will be vary from each other. Now here is where the roundup tip is off, and that it shows the actual value of the tip that we are going to pay. Let's say the user or the customer is deciding to round up the tip. We just toggle on the round tip, and as you see, the number is going to change. So that's it for this video. Everything's worked fine. In next video, I'll explain more about debugging and how you can have a more proper and more user-friendly application. And now, before we finish, we are going to just quickly recapping what have we done. We created a separate functions, and as I mentioned at the earlier of this video, the beauty of writing down the comment at the start and the end of your application or your function is will separate everything. As you see here, we have three or actually two ended curly braces, and here when we have our comment at below that last curly braces, we know this is the end of our function and it doesn't confuse. It may sound easy because we don't have much of our functions here, but the more you develop in your application, basically you will have more function and more properties inside any function, and it may confuse it. It's good habit to get used to it. Believe me, it worked for me and I'm sure it works for you. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and you had fun of developing your application. If you are new to this channel, please make sure you subscribe and like the button. And if you have any idea or if you have any question, please write it down in the comment section below. I'll respond to it as quick as I can. That's it, and I will see you all in next video. Thanks for watching.